have all these engineers lined up at my door wanting me to make decisions. So I just jumped in. I show up at work. It's sink or swim. I mean, it is sink or swim. I lasted there 10 years. And my boss, Bob Kennard, he once said to me, "You're the best product manager we ever had." I work 7 days a week. You know, it's funny, Mr. Hirsch came up. Okay, he was really the top marketing guy. And he came up with the best of both worlds. And I'm thinking, oh my God, that's corny. That's just corny. There was a period of time where he would call me and I said, "Are you calling me to flirt or are you calling me for business? Because I'm very busy making money for you." I swear to God, I said this stuff. And he said to me, he goes, "Well, Miss Cohen, I guess we know you're not a gold digger." And then I left of January of 96, but we lost it. It was gone. I mean, Ethicon had taken the market share. 30% of my time was working with legal. It was just very, very depressing. I was like the mother of these products, right? And it was like, we did all the hard work. We built those markets and they just came in and just swooped it away.
Do you feel like if you kind of summarize the big lesson learned, Hey everybody, welcome back to the show and another episode of our U.S. Surgical series. So in interviewing so many different people from U.S. Surgical about who should actually make it to this series, there's one name that kept coming up, okay? And that was the legendary Lee Cohen. And what's interesting was that Lee is not really that active online. It was really, really hard because everybody I talked to didn't have her phone and everything. Funny enough, there were a couple people who literally said "Oh, you should just ask me. I have her number." But I got so desperate that I said, "Hey, you know what? I'm gonna do this putting a missing person on a milk carton." So I posted a photo of Lee on LinkedIn and said, "Do you know this person? Please have them contact me for the U.S. Surgical series." And fortunately, that worked. It got her attention and got her on the show. Lee, thank you so much for coming on the show. How are you doing?
Oh, great. Yeah, that was pretty funny. I had people calling me and saying, "What's going on? Somebody's searching for you." And I wasn't even going to call you back because I thought it was spam of some sort. But no, they said, "Go, call." So, and here we are.
I love it. And you know what? I appreciate you. We're doing this on a Saturday morning. And from my understanding, you're very much like me. You keep a lot of things, a lot of photos and everything. So I appreciate you doing the research and you have a lot of cool stuff to walk us through. But before we kind of jump into the story at U.S. Surgical and sort of the iconic moment of when you sort of pitched Leon Hirsch on the idea of going to minimally invasive surgery, tell us a little bit about your background. Like, where did you grow up and how did you end up in medical devices and specifically U.S. Surgical?
Oh my God, that's so funny. Well, I'm living in Atlanta, Georgia now for 27 years, but I'm from Connecticut. And I'm actually, I lived 15 minutes away from the U.S. Surgical office. And so, well, that was my parents' home. And then I was living in New York at the time. And so, I mean, I knew a lot of people at the company because, it was Connecticut. But the way I got the job, my fiance at the time, his brother was head of marketing, and I was looking for a job, and his brother said, "Well, we have an opening in sales. You didn't start at U.S. Surgical in corporate. Everybody had to go to sales for 2 years to understand the culture," which, by the way, I think is brilliant and doesn't happen at other companies. So I'm living in New York City at the time, and they offered me Newark, New Jersey. Okay, you think I know what's going on in Newark, New Jersey? It was a ghetto, and it was scary, and I ended up losing 10 pounds because I couldn't find any food to eat, and it was pretty dangerous. But I got offered the sales job, and I took it. And when I went to my first surgery, it was open surgery at that time. And I've never been in the OR before. This doctor is like, this woman is like totally open. I'm standing there and he's like rifling around in her body. And I'm saying, it's like me going through my purse. And I fainted, and the smells and everything. And so they picked me up off the floor and I just got so excited. And then he took a break and went and had a cigarette, which was like bizarre. But but that was my entry, and my first territory was Newark, New Jersey, and it was pretty intense. And in my region, I was the only woman. There were not a lot of women.
What was that like?
Well, I was 29 years old. I got training in 1983. It was, the guys teased the hell out of me. We sold the EEA, and there were these EEA, sizers for the rectum, and I was constantly teased. So I had to grow some big ones real fast, and I had to get very good at, coming back at them in order to survive.
Feel free not to share, but like when you say you got teased, what do you mean?
Just, the EEA sizers, I mean, just, kind of how it was all sexual.
Oh, got it. Yeah. So pretty inappropriate.
Well, yeah. And wait, I'll tell you, the two people that had the territory before me, there was a woman, and I think she was a nurse, and she had a relationship with a lot of chiefs of surgery. I heard she made like $300,000. Okay. But
which today's dollar value, that's like making close to $1 million.
But she was offering services. So when I started in the territory, I got hit on and asked if I did the same thing. And then the person after her was a coke addict, and he was bouncing off the walls. And so I wasn't allowed in a number of the ORs. And so, I mean, I had to do my job. I remember in one hospital where she wouldn't let me in because, the guy who was a cokehead, I went and got a cardboard box because you're supposed to show your product. And I put it in front of the door at the OR. And so when the doctors were coming in and out, I was saying, hey, if you da-da-da-da, and security came and took me away. So I had to be clever about getting to the surgeons because what I followed wasn't very pleasant.
Do you feel like that molded you as a salesperson? Is that like you're following some pretty rough acts, and so you had to get very creative about how you pitch surgeons and everything?
I had to get tough. I had to be very aggressive. I would go to the lobby and page surgeons. And I scrubbed in a lot. Those were the days where you could scrub in on in surgery. So I was like, for a lot of my ORs, I was the first person there in the morning. And if it was a Jewish hospital, I brought bagels, cream cheese, and lox. You had to pay for those things. And if it wasn't a Jewish hospital, I brought donuts. So it was all about creating relationships with the people who did the schedules, the surgeons. I started a jogging club with some of these people. We ran marathons. It was all about relationships. I mean, that was the only way to be successful.
I think that's important to hear too, because I think that today people, they don't believe that still exists. And I think that in anything, that business still, the nature and culture of business hasn't changed from millennia. I think it'll continue being like that.
I love, because I'm still working. I love my surgeons. I mean, it's what makes my job so special. I learned something. It's such an intelligent client base. You're constantly learning something. I don't know. To me, they're magical. I love doctors.
I agree. I think that because of that, I always tell people, because I interact with salespeople from other industries all the time, and I say medical sales is the hardest sales job in the world. If you think about it, like intellectually, you're dealing with people who are all smarter than you, because I can go sell a marketing software, for Salesforce or something, but like even with my medical school background, like you're dealing with a surgeon who knows the stuff like 10 times better than you. It's physically grueling. You really have to be on point. Like I can't think of another sales job that is more intellectually and physically challenging as medical sales personally.
Yeah, they're bright. And a lot of them are also, they've gone to engineering, they've gotten PhDs, then they've gone on to medical school. I mean, they're really bright people, but they're great to learn from.
Absolutely. So you had a stint in sales, you spent some time there. At what point did you decide that you wanted to go more in-house into corporate, and what was that like?
I was living in New York. I was working on my MBA at Bernard Baruch in marketing. And so I knew more than anything else, I wanted in life to be a product manager. And my goal was to go in-house at corporate at US Surgical and become a product manager. So the time came and I got to interview, and I wanted to come in as an assistant. And I interviewed, and the interview went great. And my boss, who was Bob Kinar, said, "You got the job. You're not an assistant. You're a product manager."
Why'd you want to come in as an assistant? If you're a CEO of a MedTech company and you just got ghosted by another investor this week, or maybe a strategic that you're trying to have a meeting with just kind of brushed you off at a conference, and you're just sick and tired of all this, you want to make these people pretty much eat their words, right? I think I have something for you. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most MedTech startups don't fail because of product. And trust me, I can confidently say this after interviewing so many different startups on the show, investors, strategics. A lot of them fail because the market never really formed around them. My obsession with technology adoption, and more importantly, market engineering, has sort of taken shape over the years into my business called MarketCraft, and recruiting a top tier team around me for that. At MarketCraft, we're not just about digital marketing and campaigns and everything. We focus on engineering markets. We use AI-trained models, psychology, persuasion, and strategic storytelling to manufacture something that every single CEO needs, and that's leverage. We want to give you leverage with the market, so by creating magnetic messaging and attention, we can shape a belief system that is going to attract and magnetize those early clinical adopters to you. We want to give you leverage with investors because when your category narrative is very clear and your demand signals are loud and you can show this early clinical pipeline, and then at that point, capital start to chase you instead of the other way around. Now you have options. And then leverage with strategics. Because look, when you show a strategic, and trust me, I've had many conversations with them on this podcast and offline. When you show them that you're starting to own momentum in a space that they care about, you don't just look like a startup to them anymore. Now you look more like a partner. And if you do it really well, potentially competition they need to take out, right? So if you're an early stage MedTech CEO and this all resonated with you, I want you to stop what you're doing, put pause on this podcast, go to growmymedtech.com. That's GROW, growmymedtech.com. I want you to book time with me. Okay, we're going to do a little bit of a market analysis for you. I'm going to come to the table with 2 to 3 really good ideas. You know, there's not a guarantee that you guys might be a fit for us. It could be the wrong time, a lot of things like that. We turn away more companies than we take on. But I can guarantee you that you're going to walk away with 2 or 3 really good ideas for free, and it's going to be a good conversation. So go to growmymedtech.com. I'm really looking forward to talking with you. And more importantly, you can feel free to vent to me about all the problems that you're having, because at MarketCraft, we want to come and solve those for you immediately. Now, let's get back to the episode.
Because I've never done it before, and I wanted somebody to mentor me. And there were 2 other guys, Gary and Freddie. 3 of us came in at the same time. And I show up at work. There's no, it's sink or swim. I mean, it is sink or swim. And I have all these engineers like lined up at my door wanting me to make decisions. Now, do I know the products? I was in the field for 2 years. You know, I've talked to the surgeons. I know how things were supposed to work, how they would feel, what the doctor's thoughts were. So, I mean, I just jumped in and I loved it. The other 2, I lasted there 10 years. And as my boss, Bob Kinar, said, he once said to me, "You're the best product manager we ever had." The other 2 guys didn't last nearly as long as I did.
Why is that?
It was very demanding. I'm sure you've heard that about US Surgical.
I've heard all the stories, but I want the listeners to hear specifically, how demanding was it?
I worked 7 days a week. I was living in New York. I was the first one in. I did a reverse commute, and I often stayed there till 9 o'clock at night. And because my parents lived close, if I thought I couldn't drive home, I went and I stayed at their house. But it was like, I don't know, there was just so much going on. I'll never forget, I went down. So Lee and Terry were on the top floor. Then marketing was on the second floor, and in the bottom floor was engineering and purchasing. And I'll never forget, I went to see Tom Guy. He was head of purchasing, and he kind of managed and controlled a lot of things. If you wanted to get something, you go see Tom Guy. And so and we all had secretaries then. And so the secretary's eating an ice cream sundae. And I'm going, why are you eating an ice cream sundae for breakfast? She goes, Lee, it's noon. So I'm just trying to give you an idea of like, oh my God. I mean, this is the way the day went. And the engineers were very regimented. I knew when they came in, they took 2 breaks a day. They ate lunch, right? I never sat down and ate lunch. I'd get something in the cafeteria and walk around with my food. And I never sat at my desk, and I would just, I knew where to find the engineers because we were constantly working on something. I mean, it was just unbelievably exciting. I loved my job. My mother used to say, what do you do there for 16 hours a day? It was incredible.
What was it like? Your first year as a product manager. Aside from the training and everything, like, what were some of the more difficult hurdles that you had to get over?
So I'm gonna go pick something up.
And this is the best part of this, specifically about this episode. Lee is the first guest who actually has like actual photographs and content to share. All right, let's see that.
Okay, so this was my first real. Can you see it? My first real project.
I'm going to read this out for everybody for people who are not watching. It says, the best of both worlds, the only reusable disposable that provides all 3: new knife, new tissue gap controller, new cartridge with each application. Auto suture, multi-fire, GI. By the way, can I comment? I just need to comment on this.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is back like quite a long time ago. And the copywriting is so good. It's so good. It's clear. It's concise. You have 3 key things to focus on. That's it. Compared to a lot of the garbage that I see today, that's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
It's funny. Mr. Hirsch came up. Okay, he was really the top marketing guy. All right, and he came up with the best of both worlds. And I'm thinking, oh my God, that's corny. That's just corny. But you know what? I mean, but it worked. And everybody was saying it, but this product used to be reusable, and then we made it a disposable, and it was my first very successful product. And I remember we had a meeting at corporate where everything got launched. We were very thorough, very educational about everything, and I'm up there, and I'm demoing it, and I'm so excited. I speak fast. I'm just running through it. And Mr. Hirsch comes over and he goes, wait a minute, slow down. And, he starts reiterating all the benefits. But I mean, it was a huge success. I was in the field, this was open surgery. I was in the field working.
Can you share with the audience specifically what did this device do?
Okay, so this was for colons if they were going to do an anastomosis. And they would also use it on the lung for wedge resections or if they were going to do a colectomy. And so it was our 2 most common areas of focus. It's generic. I mean, it's something that you use. If they set up the OR, that's going to be on the Mayo stand. The GIAs are going to be there if you're going to do a colon. And it was disposable. You could use it multiple times. And the staple lines it was just a beautiful instrument. And the multi-fire, there's a little circle here. The logo, I go up to visit Mr. Hirsch, and he makes this little logo for me, with a piece of paper. He says, here, take this to the art department and have them do something with it. So I constantly worked with him, and he was brilliant as he understood the sales. He's the best salesperson I've ever met in my life. Did you hear about his background as far as sales? Am I changing?
I did. Oh, no. I mean, I did, but let's like share with the listeners a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
I covered it a little bit in the episode I did covering him, but I want you to go into it a little bit.
Okay. So first of all, he was a New Yorker, and he didn't finish high school, but he did he got into the Bronx School of Science. All right. And he wasn't accepted right away. He ended up talking to a president or somebody, and then he got in. I mean, he was tested. He was really, really bright, but he didn't finish high school, and he got into sales early on. And, the dry cleaning, he was selling freezers, big freezers. I mean, I remember like my parents, like in the 50s, you had this big freezer, and it was full of food. And my parents paid in the 50s for their house $12,000, and this freezer was $5,000. And I mean, that's a really difficult sale. And Mr. Hirsch would tell stories about how he'd sit there and people would say, no, that's just like astronomical. I mean, I can't pay for that. But then he would see something, something that was high tech for that period of time. And he'd sit back down and he was able to make that sale that was just so difficult. So he was very good at reading people, seeing angles, getting people to buy. And so I interacted with him all the time. He was the number one product manager, and he was just very clever and smart about those things.
That's amazing. And I guess, in a way, you kind of got what you wanted, because had you been an assistant, you would have been, sort of trained and mentored by another product manager. But because you're a product manager, you interacted with the best of the best.
Yes, I got to go upstairs all the time.
What was that like? Yeah. So there's this common theme of like, when you get called upstairs and by the way, I never met him.
Yeah.
But I call him Mr. Hirsch now too. I can't call him Leon.
You don't call him Leon.
Yeah. So what was it like when you got called upstairs to Mr. Hirsch's office?
Well, I think you've heard he was very flirty. Okay. I mean, he had a lot of power and, he was very flirty. And so there was a period of time where he would call me and I said, are you calling me to flirt or are you calling me for business? Because I'm very busy making money for you. I swear to God, I said this stuff. And so, and then I'd go upstairs and I, would talk to him. But if it wasn't about business, I came back down. And it was the funniest thing because he asked me out to dinner one time. And there was Fuddruckers. It's a hot dog place that was across from my house in Westport. And I don't know, I was into hot dogs, right? And Mr. Hirsch liked very fine food, expensive food, the Four Seasons, what was it? La Chateau. It was this beautiful French restaurant we used to go to and have dinners there. So I said, I'll go to dinner if I can pay and we can go to Fuddruckers. And he said to me, he goes, well, Miss Cohen, I guess we know you're not a gold digger.
Amazing. So then, when you get called up for like not business, like it was just like to kind of like flirt around, and he would just because like I think like I remember when I worked in an office, we would do that I wouldn't flirt with my coworkers, but like what I would do was sometimes like they would either come to my office or I would go into theirs, and we just like shoot the breeze, like talk about random stuff, because like you're there for a long time, so sometimes like you just need a break and stuff. So what was that like?
I mean, he was really busy. I mean, he constantly had people at his doors. He had a great secretary, Sue Bowlby. So if I needed to find, I'll tell you one thing. He could be on a plane, a helicopter, a train. He could be in Montana. He could at one of his homes, or he could be in Aspen on the ski slope. This man got back to me within an hour. And that's what taught me, you call somebody back right away. I mean, if I had a question and I couldn't find him, I knew where he was. I knew how to find him. And he always got back to me, which I thought was amazing. And he had a little pad and he took notes about everything. So he never forgot anything. He took notes. And I also started to carry around the same notepad that he did, because I mean, yeah, I guess, he taught me how to be a marketing and a salesperson. I mean, he made my career. I feel like, and look, it was very difficult at times. Sometimes I'd go down to my office and I'd roll up in a ball and I was crying, because it was harsh, but, he made me who I am. He did.
That's amazing. So when you were in a product manager, after the stapler, what were some of the big lines of revenue for U.S. Surgical at this time? I want to talk about this before we get into the minimally invasive here, but like, how is U.S. Surgical making its money before minimally invasive?
It was open surgery. It was the staplers. It was the EEA, the endo GIA, Oh, hold on. I'll show you something else. Okay, so when you go through training, here's the stapling guide, okay? And these are all of the procedures. You have to memorize this, and we had to do them in an animal. So this was your Bible, and this is what you did. You were constantly in the OR, and you would scrub in or you would observe the case. And this was the revenue line. It was the staplers, and I didn't go. And then we gave these out to, our special doctors, but you didn't go anywhere without this.
Amazing. And you memorize that in and out. And this was very unique to U.S. Surgical back then, because I think U.S. Surgical was the very first to say, we're going to train our salespeople clinically, correct?
The training was 3 weeks. It was really intense. We stayed at an old people's home. I remember in Stamford, Connecticut, at least once a week, somebody was smoking a cigarette and an alarm went off, and we all had to go outside in the middle of the night. So we had, this very young crew, and then we had all these, senior citizens. And everybody at some point, because you got really close with that group, there was some kind of like mental breakdown, like not everybody made it, and either you got physically sick or, you got brain cramps and you couldn't focus. It was just intense, and a lot of testing.
During that time, some of the more innovative and breakthrough products for U.S. Surgical was, I think, in the late 80s, was the absorbable sutures, correct?
The late 80s, yes. And I have to tell you, I was not involved in that at all, because I was very busy doing the minimally invasive stuff. So to me, that was a line that was, we were catching up to Ethicon. That was a line that had already existed for years with a number
on the open surgery side.
Yeah, on the open surgery side. So I had no interest.
And tell me why. So I'm gonna take you back to that time. So Ethicon was part of J&J.
Yeah.
And doing very well. And so the idea is there's this massive $1 billion market in sutures and open surgery. That's what everybody's used to and everything. So we need to go after that. Why did that not interest you?
And there was also Davis and Gecht. I remember that, because it was old technology. It wasn't new. It wasn't, a piece of string wasn't exciting to me. I just never got involved. That was a whole separate division. I knew everybody over there, but never sold them. I never had anything. It was totally separated. But yeah, it was a good financial stream for the company, because then you could offer everything. Not only did we have we were building that MIS department, we also had everything you need for the basics, for basic surgery.
So at that time, under your ownership, what were some of the products that you were specifically focused on, that you were managing at the time?
Okay, so I'm going to go get some more things.
Yes, absolutely. And if I leave something out, please feel free to guide me a little bit, because I want to make sure we get through all your content that you have there. Okay,
so after the endo GIA, Mr. Hirsch calls me and Freddie and says, I want you to go to Redwood City, California. I forgot the name of the company, but they have because we were moving into disposables, getting away from stainless steel and reusables. And he goes, there's a disposable trocar. Now, as far as we knew, the only group that was specialty was gynecologists at that time, because they were doing tubules. And so he said, go out.
I remember the company's name was it Endo Therapeutics?
Yep. Yeah, you're right. It was Endo. And do you know who I worked with? Fred Mall. Do you know who Fred Mall is?
Of course I know Fred Mall. Yeah. So this is a shocker, everybody. All these things are related. So talk about Fred Mall in the trocar.
So Freddie and I go out, and the idea is, all right, Mr. Hirsch said, come back and let me know whether we should buy this trocar. And so we spent a lot of time with Fred Mall. He taught us about the market, and we went and we saw cases with gynecologists. And I I said, Freddie, I'm really interested in this. I said, this is new. I want to go back, tell Mr. Hirsch that I think we want to buy it, and I want it. I want this product line. And we also had a C-section instrument at that time for doing cesarean sections. And it was an absorbable stapler. And Freddie was working on that. And he said, yeah, okay, I'll stay with the stapler. So I go back and Mr. Hirsch gives me the trocar line. And in 1987, and this is from the annual report, we bought that from Endotherapeutics, and we re-engineered it. We made it better. We re-engineered it. We did a lot of testing. We did a lot of strategy as far as marketing and, how we were going to sell it. So that was 1987, and it became a whole entire line, every single size.
And for the audience who are not familiar with general surgery, what exactly is a trocar, and what was so special about the Surgiport trocar that you guys bought?
Good. Really, really good question. All right. So at the time, as I said, it was only gynecologists, and they weren't doing hysterectomies or anything like that. It was, everything was minor. But what you would do is you would go in with this Varus needle, okay, and then you would fill the abdomen with the pelvic cavity with CO2. And then what you would do, here's actually a trocar. This was a pen that I created that we sold. And you would insert this into the abdomen, okay? And there was a very sharp blade at the end. So what we offered, it was disposable, it was one-time use, so it was always sharp, but we added a safety shield. And when the doctor inserted it through the abdominal cavity, the shield in milliseconds came down and covered the knife, because frequently there would be injuries to vessels. They'd always say aim for the uterus because the uterus is forgiving. But, when you're entering in and it's blind, you could hit an organ and have an injury. So we had this. We had a great demo tool. We launched this in 1987, and I think I was told that it was the most successful launch after the EEA. And I made this pen to give to nurses and to doctors and for them to wear, and it has the little safety shield on it. Well, this was coming from China or something, or Taiwan. There was a typhoon, and our tooling and everything got lost. And Bob calls me in his office and goes, forget about it. Just leave it alone. Don't do it. I said, no, I'm coming out with my Surgiport pen. And it took a little bit longer, but I actually sold these to the sales force for $3 a piece. I didn't give them away.
You sold them to the sales force for $3 a piece? All right. So adjusted to today's time, that's literally like selling a $20 or $30 pen. So you sold. Wait. So where did that was that like revenue for U.S. Surgical?
Yeah.
Revenue from its own sales force
from the demo. Yeah, they had to purchase them, and so wherever you'd go, you'd see people wearing these, and it was, to me, it was.
Do you remember the annual revenue for U.S. for Surgiport pens that year? No, I don't. But actually, I pretty much had carte blanche as far as spending. Nobody ever stopped me. One time, a finance guy came down when we were doing Lap Coley, and he goes, you spent I'll never forget this. You spent $7 million on the launch. And I'm looking at him and I go, okay, yeah, so? And he just looked at me and walked away. If I needed to spend a lot of money, I would ask Mr. Hirsch or, Bob Canar. I didn't do things foolishly. I was very conservative and I was cautious. I spent money. I thought, well, we were needed. And if they told me no, it was no, but I hardly ever got a no. So was the Surgiport trocar kind of was that the catalyst, the thing that made you say, so that okay. Was the thing. So, and by the way, I've heard Dr. Mall, I've heard Fred Mall, I've heard Fred, but I love the fact that you call him Freddie. That's a first for me. I love it. So taking this product, making it better and launching it, what was that feeling like for you? And what was it that made you say like, oh, this is, so was minimally invasive surgery already kind of starting to circulate at the time? Like what was the state of surgical union back then?
Okay, so what's going on at the same time we're doing this with gynecologists is Jim Daniels, was it Centennial Hospital? This is coming back to me. In Nashville, he was a gynecologist. He's teaching Eddie Joe Reddick and his partner, and I can't think of his name right now, how to do gallbladders laparoscopically. Okay? I mean, that's where this whole thing came from. Because, all right, gallbladders, there was a very large incision. Having a diseased gallbladder, people, you would have episodes. People didn't want to go and have the surgery. It was a large incision. It was very painful. You were in the hospital for a week. It was 6 weeks recovery, right? So Jim Daniels and Eddie Joe got together and they said, okay, why don't we...
Who's Jim Daniels and who's Eddie Joe?
Yes. Okay. So Jim Daniels was a gynecologist and he was using Surgiport. And actually, I think, there was a camaraderie and, Eddie saw what he was doing with the trocar and the two of them got this idea about, doing lap chole. So Eddie taught Jim Daniels taught Eddie Joe Reddick, who was a general surgeon, basically doing a lot of hemorrhoids. And the most common procedure, bread and butter, was lap choles. There was, a million of them a year. So it was a way for him to increase his income. So Jim taught him how to do laparoscopy and use trocars. So, all right. So here's how the story continues. I get a call from a rep and he says, you got to come down here and see this. And I go, well, what's going on? And he goes, Eddie Joe Reddick is teaching people how to do lap choles, and they're taking our clip applier that's used for open surgery, jerry-rigging it, using glue, and showing them how to do this in the OR, and then going and doing a pig lab and teaching them how to do it. And these people are going home and doing lap choles in their OR. So I go down. There were 18 people in Eddie's OR, and he charged them $1,000 a piece. Okay, to be there and to learn and to have this training. So and then I'm freaking out because you can't use our product that way. Like it's just totally off label. It's like totally
extremely off label.
Yeah, it's like illegal, and somebody is going to get hurt. You just can't do that, right? So I ended up.
And around what year was this roughly?
Okay. It was 89, maybe 89.
89,
right?
Got it.
Okay. So anyway, so I told, Mr. Hirsch what was going on, and he said, well, this is great. This is a huge market, and we knew how bad it was to have that, open gallbladder procedure. So anyway, there's a very famous person. His name is George Bursey. In fact, he recently passed away. George Bursey started SAGES, which is a famous society. And he worked very closely with Storz, and he brought about laparoscopy and cameras and was very famous in his own right. And he was at Cedars-Sinai. Still at 100 years old, his wife, Barbara, had passed away, but somebody was taking him out of his old age home, and then he was still going to work at Cedars-Sinai and working in the lab. All right. So at that time, George was very interested because, he was working on scopes with Storz. And then there was a Dr. Phillips who was the head of general surgery of Cedars-Sinai. And so they asked me if I would take them to see Eddie Joe and to see what was going on in this OR, and they wanted to go to the lab. And they're two little Jewish guys, right? And so we get in the room, and of course the room is all full, and they whisper to me, "Do we have to pay $1,000?" I go, "No, you're here with me. You're my guest." And it just took off. Everybody's eyes just kind of popped out. So what I had to do was go back to corporate and say, Mr. Hirsch, we need a laparoscopic, clip applier. I mean, it's that simple. So hold on.
And this is the birth of the famous EndoClip.
And
Am I right?
And this is the first one here. It was reusable. It was reusable.
So for those who are now watching on, so it says at the top of this ad, new from United States Surgical Corporation, EndoClip applier, the world's first automatic clip applier for operative laparoscopy.
Yes. And it's funny, people were throwing the handle away and it was reusable. I was getting a lot of phone calls. So that's why we decided to go disposable. But anyway, it took a while to develop the clip applier, and the engineers did testing every night. And I would call at 12 o'clock and say, do we have a clip applier? Is it ready yet? Because they weren't firing properly. And I had all these doctors calling me on the phone, when you're going to have this, when you're going to have this, we want to be the first. So finally it's done. And so there was so we come down to Atlanta, and Eddie Joe Reddick was very friendly with a GYN surgeon here, William Say, Dr. Say. And Dr. Say has his own pig lab, and he has access to farmers. Anyway, that became our main teaching center, was down here in Marietta. And Mr. Hirsch flew down with me and gave him, and I forgot what the amount of money was, but a huge check in order to set this up. And we did training every weekend for years. I mean, that's how it started in the U.S.
And so tail end of the 80s, so 89, 90, you start going into more minimally invasive laparoscopic surgery. Towards the end of the 80s, I think in 88 or 89, PETA and animal rights protesters really hated U.S. Surgical, to the point that they actually, I think in 88, put a bomb near Mr. Hirsch's parking place. Right.
Yeah.
So I heard, you guys had like bulletproof glasses. So what was that like as a product manager when you're like, hey, this is the new exciting thing. So if you do minimally invasive laparoscopic surgery, that's going to require a lot more animal labs and everything. So what was that like for you?
I think I was blinded by what I was doing, because we have dogs now, and I would never be able to do what I did then. But yes, Mr. Hirsch's car was bulletproof. And often PETA would protest, and I would go out the side door, where we all came in, and they'd be out there chanting, and they would be letting black balloons go. And so our security was very intense. I got to tell you, it was Mr. Hirsch they were after. I never felt threatened. I mean, today I'm sad about all the animals, because I also did a lot of training myself on the animals. But we learned to do the procedures, and we did them on dogs, a lot on beagles. It was the way to, it was the thing back then. That's the way you did the training. And people would come in from training, and they would faint sometimes at those tables, where they'd walk out and say, I can't do this. But, it's like, suck it up. This is the way you learn.
Got it. So after you got the EndoClip and those different products, like, what was it like, aside from, like, how did you as a product manager kind of start managing the sales force? Because I'm sure, the sales force was making a real good amount of money on open surgery products, right? So how did you convince the sales force to say, hey, you're going to go after this completely new thing, which there's like not a defined market. It's a new market, right? So it's going to be harder and everything. So how do you convince a sales team to do that?
Okay, so we called them endo babies, because all they did was take orders. They didn't sell. So you're going to love this. So we had at corporate, I forgot how many regions there were across the country, but maybe there were 7 or anyway, but 6 or 7 of them flowed through. Okay, I wrote a launch package with history, competition, vocabulary, like soup to nuts. We had somebody in the research department who worked with me, David Saffer. I mean, this was an extensive launch. And then we had a great education person, Elaine Kelleher. So everybody came in, they got all the didactics. And then we had a lab. We had a pig lab for every salesperson to go through to understand how the product worked. But you're going to love this. We always had a private lab in the back. Well, Fred Mall came and worked in the private lab so the sales force could actually see, what the setup was, how our trocars went in, how he did the lap chole. And we had groups of everybody flow through. And the funny thing was I had to buy all this equipment. And at the end, somebody, I'll never forget this, they stole the scope. Somebody stole the laparoscope. And I was just so pissed off. It's why would somebody do that? But that's how we did the training, and Fred Mall was there helping us.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So as you kind of got, the salespeople out in the streets, what was it like? They're still very important today, but I feel like back then, especially I think in the 80s, 90s, and through the 2000s, it was like turf warfare at the hospital with your competitors. And then the other place would be the annual conferences. So what were the conferences like? And I mean, this was battleground between US Surgical and Ethicon, but was there anybody else? I'm sure there had been other smaller companies just trying to get some breadcrumbs left over.
So the year that we launched the endo clip, this was at ACS. We were right next to Ethicon, and actually
American College of Surgeons annual conference, and you guys were right next to Ethicon.
Yeah, and I think they were launching their trocar. They took our patents, they infringed them, and they were launching their disposable trocar because the market was so huge. Well, so this is funny. I had gone with Eddie Joe Reddick because you got to have a video, right? And so I go into the OR with Eddie, and the clip applier wasn't working. So we would show the clip applier going in, and then we used a disposable clip applier to apply on the vessels. So then we, edited it, and it was funny because our product was broken, but they saw it going in and out of the trocar. I was sitting and editing the video, and Eddie comes in, he gets me, and he goes, come with me. And I go, where are we going? Anyway, he takes me to the patient's room that we just did the video with. And I'll never forget this. She's sitting up, her hair looks great. And she goes, can I go home? And, I almost fell on the floor, and it was the testimonial, oh my God, this shit really works, And he goes, I wanted you to see this for yourself, what's going on with
that's going from a surgery that on average people were 5 or 6 weeks recovery. It was a big surgery.
Yeah, a big major surgery. So we made this video so that we could show at ACS. We also planned to launch our first course at US Surgical. So we had brochures that we had out, right? Our carpet was packed. In fact, we were overflowing onto Ethicon's carpet, and they complained to the Congress that our people were overflowing and they weren't staying in the booth. Okay, so they weren't very happy about this. So anyway, Eddie's up there talking, and we're showing the video, and all these academicians, you could see, no, this is never going to happen. No. Meanwhile, all those brochures are just, flying off the shelf, right? And I mean, from there on, after that launch, we actually developed a sales force. I think there were 7 people, and the 7 of them every weekend somewhere in the United States did a training. So we ended up training 40,000 surgeons, and this is worldwide, in 4 years, 10,000.
And
so,
small request, don't hit the table.
I'm sorry.
But I love it though.
I gotta get something else. Oops.
All right, what do we got?
Okay. So, well, here's a picture. So these were our labs. Here's a picture of Eddie Joe Reddick. So I have all pictures, of all these, these famous guys. This is Felicia Steichen, and this is Carl Zucker. Felicia Steichen helped Mr. Hirsch and Turi develop the first staplers. It was Steichen and Rabbit. And this is Carl Zucker. He died from esophageal cancer, but he was our director for all of our lap chole courses at corporate. And
Amazing.
so it was, it was just, and what we did is we used Eddie's guys to come up and help us with the pigs so that when we started our training, that we were doing it properly. But wait, I got more.
But wait, there's more.
Okay. So it wasn't just happening in the US. At 4 years involved Europe. This is Professor Murray, okay? And he was the first doctor to do a lap chole in Europe, and he was from France. And we had an office in Lyon, and I remember we went there and we launched it. That was our corporate headquarters there, and Professor Murray was there, and he launched it for us to the sales force. So we were. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no. So I want to sort of set the stage. Like at this point in time, I want you to kind of tell the story. So essentially, during this time, so we're talking about like 89ish to 1991. There was pretty much like a virtual monopoly on the sales of the equipment for a lot of this stuff. So U.S. Surgical, just by the numbers, so people understand the context. From I think 1991 saw its sales grow by about 50% in 1990, and then 75% in the first half of 1991. So the earnings during that time grew by about 78%, and by the end of the year, they pretty much doubled since 1990. So keep in mind, for a publicly traded company back in the 90s, this was like insane. So U.S. Surgical sold more than $300 million worth of laparoscopic equipment in 1991. And they essentially, because of that, became one of the fastest growing companies in the United States. Profits with 91 million. The stock price pretty much kept pace with this increase, and as a result, a lot of people at U.S. Surgical pretty much became millionaires. So the ability to recruit, like people were beating down the doors to get in, right?
It was on the front page of the Bridgeport, or was the Connecticut Post at that time, like 50 new millionaires at U.S. Surgical. What was going on with the stock? Because this was, it was a worldwide event. And what I wanted to show you, we went to Moscow. Okay. Turi went, and Carl, and we took somebody with us from Cedars-Sinai who was friendly with George Bursey because he was from Moscow, and so he could speak Russian. And we went there for a week, and we taught the Russians how to do lap chole.
Which is funny because like the original stapler the whole thing was essentially a Russian device that couldn't get sold, right?
Yeah.
So here's where I want you to kind of take the story is that. So Mr. Hirsch predicted that there was a lot of room for growth in laparoscopic surgery. Because it was just being adapted by more and more people, especially post ACS and everything. And so then U.S. Surgical set out to essentially market a package of laparoscopic tools, staples, and sutures, right?
Yes.
But the interesting thing was that in addition to all of this, so again, insane growth in the U.S., the company started to do a major push to market its products in Europe. And they built a new sales and distribution center in France.
In Paris. But even before that, Elancourt, even before that, we had 17 wholly owned subsidiaries. So Lyon, that corporate headquarters moved to Paris. And that wasn't until like 95, I think. But and then I had gone on tour with another product manager. We went to every one of those subsidiaries and did training, and there was a group of us. So that's why this thing took 4 years, and we didn't know what day of the week it was.
And like just so people understand, like because a lot of times when people hear about like launching a new sales and distribution center, like it takes time. A quarter, so 25% of U.S. Surgical's revenue came from foreign sales, which specifically from that European distribution center.
Yes.
So all of this, and then by 1992, there was an estimate of about like 85 to 87% of all gallbladder procedures in the U.S. were done using laparoscopic techniques.
Yeah. There was the training was an issue. There was a moratorium in New York for a while because people were getting injured because they would go and do a pig for a day, and they needed a little bit more training or mentoring. So there was a moratorium in New York for a while, but everything picked up, and that just kind of moved away. And I mean, I don't even think residents know how to do an open lap chole now. I mean, there's no reason unless something's really wrong.
So all of this growth, this all happened within a period of 2 or 3 years. It all started from that moment of that lab that happened where off-label use of products and Mr. Hirsch seeing past the legal, how illegal this could possibly be, all the lawsuits and everything, and just saying, why? How was he able to see it? Do you think he was focused on the excitement? Like, what was it about that moment that made him say, no, like, we're going to pursue this? Because he could have been like, no, this is a risk. It's a liability. Shut it down. We have a perfectly good business and open. Well, how?
That's, we constantly took a risk there. I mean, we could change direction with the sales force on a dime. I mean, he never stumbled. If he saw an opportunity, he went after it. I mean, I learned to throw a lot of stuff on the wall and let's just see what sticks. Let's just go after it all. All right, let's just see what happens. Let's follow the path. Not everything, worked, but a good percentage did. He was a huge risk taker. And, I was happy to run right behind him.
I love it. And so at the very end of 1992, U.S. Surgical, and so keep in mind, like we're talking about, in the late 80s, doing tens of millions of dollars, maybe 100, topping off around 300 million, right? And so at the end of 1992, revenue, not market cap, revenue topped $1 billion.
When I started, it was 300 million. And with the MIS department, it went to 1.1 billion.
Back in that day, that's a lot of money. That's an insane amount of money.
Oh, so, wait, can I tell you what I got?
We want to hear we want to hear like.
Wait, I got one other thing I got to show you. Hold on. Let's see. Where is this? This is. Let's see. We went to China. There was a whole group of very famous, top-notch surgeons, and I have a whole book here, and it was 10 surgeons, and actually, I think Fred Moll was involved in this. But we went to China, to Shanghai, and Beijing, and I've got this whole album here, and we brought lap chole to China. So, I mean, it wasn't even just Europe. I mean, Moscow, China. I mean, it was happening. It was happening worldwide. Wait, let me, I want to, okay. All right. Carl Zucker, we gave him the money, created an atlas on how to do a lap chole. And so it was really funny because we would get a call and something went wrong, and Carl would say they did the home study course. And because we gave this out after the training. So then we were very cautious to make sure that this training didn't get around because, as I said, there were, the common bile duct was what happened. Sometimes it got cut instead of the cystic duct and artery. But that was really funny. He put that together. And then here's that article in Fortune I was talking about. And it says in 1989, I think Mr. Hirsch was saying this, in 1989, an employee who had graduated for the company's demanding sales training program met a surgeon who was using a jerry-rig clip applier to remove gallbladders laparoscopically. The U.S. surgical woman carried the word back to headquarters, and by early 1900, the company had a basic laparoscopic stapler ready to go. And so I go up to his office with this article, and I go, that woman? What you couldn't use my name? I just remember being so angry. And you asked me before about, the level I got to was senior director. I never made it to vice president. And I was so upset about that because even the analysts were constantly interviewing me and coming to the congresses and asking us questions. The analyst told Mr. Hirsch, he goes, this woman should be a vice president. There was a glass ceiling.
So well, I was going to ask. I was like that was unfortunately one of those things.
I was angry. I let them know, but it is what it is. Wait a minute. Is there any? Hold on. Well, go ahead, because now there's the next step after this is the endo-GIA. So go ahead. Do you want to ask me more questions about LapColi?
Yeah, no. So like that year that you guys topped over $1 billion in sales. So what was your annual sales conference like?
Oh my God! We had a meeting. Okay, we had a meeting in Arizona. We had a marching band. We rented this huge ballroom. We had a marching band, fireworks. We were doing skits and plays. I mean, we were really entertaining the sales force, and there's always an award ceremony, and I got a plaque, and for being they called me the catalyst for what was going on. I was the catalyst, and Mr. Hirsch had told me that he wanted to give me 100,000 shares of stock, but the board would not approve it. So after that meeting, I came back. I got called to his office by Bob Kinar, and they opened a bottle of Dom Perignon, and he handed me a check after tax. I was for $100,000. There was $70,000 for the work that I did, and toasted me. It's really cool.
What about the rest of the sales team? Like what, so like, again, like during this time, there are a lot of millionaires who were made. Did anybody retire as a result of that and just say like, I'm done, or they kept going? Well,
no, the sales force was making, I mean, they were just going and picking up orders. They were the best paid. The amount of money that they were making was, they were doing better than me because I was on salary. U.S. Surgical always had great commission plans, really good. They paid well. And our sales force, they called us the Green Berets. They were older, okay? They were really sharp. They were very skilled at what they were doing. We had excellent sales management, and they were just super. They were just really bright. They did a good job, and they made a shitload of money. A lot of money.
So times were good. Times were fat.
Very fat.
Well, and unfortunately, this is where the story kind of turns a little bit, which is right around like 92. That's when Ethicon sort of comes to the market with, I think, over 40 different products. And, U.S. Surgical started 92 in January with a share price of $134.50. And then by, I think, a quarter or two later, the stock price had fell to about $31.37.
Well, I remember.
Why did that happen?
Well, before all that happened, there was the endo-GIA. So I want to tell you that story.
Yeah,
things start to go downhill.
What is the endo-GIA, and what is that?
And then take me back there, okay?
I will, yeah.
All right, let me see. Where do I want to go? Okay. So
for those who are listening, Lee has on her guest room a bed with like just all these photos and like pamphlets and everything laid out for this one episode. So we appreciate that you did a bunch of like work ahead of time.
Well, that's why I just didn't want to get on the phone with you, and things are really crazy. So I wanted to be organized. Okay. So there's a gentleman, a gynecologist from Pennsylvania, Harry Rich. He's still alive. He's actually living, sorry, I'm banging the table.
No, you're hitting the desk.
Please, because I'm so excited. He's actually living in Atlanta. There's AAGL, is American Association of Laparoscopic Gynecologists, and that's the biggest GYN meeting. Anyway, Harry was brilliant, pushed the envelope, and was much farther along than any gynecologist in the country, because people were still, they weren't doing, a hysterectomy was done open. Again, another huge procedure, right? So I started working with Harry on the trocars, and then he was saying, okay, well, we have these trocars. he did the first hysterectomy laparoscopically. Okay, the first hysterectomy laparoscopically. And he used a Clepinger bipolar forceps for the vessels. Now, that happens to be great, and that's what they use now. They use energy. But back then, we didn't know enough, okay? And the surgeons didn't want to move ahead doing a laparoscopic hysterectomy with just energy. They wanted something more secure. So Harry starts driving me crazy. Actually, I had gotten promoted to a group product manager, and Harry doesn't leave me alone. He's constantly calling, when you're going to have that endo-GIA? I want to do these, these hysterectomies, but I don't want to do it with the Clepinger forceps. And so I go upstairs, I talk to her, I go, I need a demotion. I need to go back to just being a senior product manager because I need to do the endo-GIA, right? So this is the endo-GIA, and they have multiple sizes now, but the jaws were actually, it was 30 millimeters long, 3 centimeters long, so it's short because they come in different sizes. And this would be perfect for doing a hysterectomy and taking the vessels.
And Lee, I gotta go back and ask you a question.
What?
You get this promotion, so you're not only getting a title, you worked so hard at this point, you're probably making more money too. Why did you demote yourself? Why did you do that?
Because I wanted to work with Harry on the endo-GIA and, bring about, change the face of surgery and make hysterectomies. I mean, my mother had a hysterectomy. I remember what a huge operation it was and how miserable she was, big, large incision. If you could do it laparoscopically and it's safe, that's the way to go. And so, but what happened is we had a focus group at corporate, and I have a whole photo album on this, but I got the world's best gynecologist. And there was a doctor, what was his name? Hoskins. No, it wasn't that. I can't remember his name, but he was from Baltimore. And he was very prominent in gynecology anyway, and very conservative. So we had these 10 doctors, like from around the world, conservative, liberal, and Harry gets up and shows this video of his first hysterectomy using the Clepinger forceps with our trocars. And it was astounding. I mean, even the conservative doctors, like their jaw dropped. And the photographs are the party at Mr. Hirsch's house at night, because everybody was rejoicing and drinking, and Harry, his wife, was there, and it was like, okay, we're going to make this endo-GIA for you, Harry, and this is going to be the next move. And hold on, did I bring this? Oh yeah. We ended up, this really developed. We have all these different types of hysterectomies. We have an atlas on it with all of our KOLs around the country for every different type of hysterectomy using the endo-GIA. And so then there was courses and courses and courses on the endo-GIA. And that was another huge successful launch before things started to go down the toilet.
Let's talk about when things started to go down the toilet. Like, okay. After all this growth, right, and taking over so much of the market, how and why did things turn south so fast, so badly?
Ethicon has a lot of money. They were very aggressive. They saw the the billions that were available out there, and I think a lot of people just got fat and happy, and they didn't have their finger on the pulse anymore.
They were just essentially, they weren't even selling at this point. They were just taking reorders, right?
Yeah, and management. If I would have to call people in their vacation homes. I mean, people made a lot of money, and they were enjoying the prize of what we reaped, and they weren't working. And I remember Mr. Hirsch saying to me, "Will you stop acting like you're the only person working?" I said, "Well, I think I am." And then so then the market, so we started to lose market share because Ethicon was very aggressive. They had
what does that mean? When you say Ethicon was very aggressive, can you tell us specifically what were they doing?
So their sales force was always very uptight, conservative, suit, tie, white shirt. They had a lot of contracts. They owned a lot of business already because of the suture business. And then they had, gotten into staplers. So they were just eating our lunch, and they had better access. And again, we were not moving fast at that time, and we started to lose market share. And I think what really killed us is there was this thing called JITs, just-in-time inventory, and because they were trying to save the sales. And so with the JITs, these warehouses that opened up for distribution, we ended up selling like a year's worth of supply of products. And that was at an end of, and I don't know, 93, 90, 94. And so 95 comes, and, the morale, our clocks were getting eaten by Ethicon.
So that just-in-time, and you said just-in-time sales?
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more in detail about that. So essentially this is something that they sold like a year's worth of product and like stocked the shelves. And so that brought in a bunch of revenue, and people like surpassed quota at the end of the year, but they sandbagged, and then short-term pleasure for a long-term consequence. Is that what that was?
And they came out with packages for people to leave. And morale was just, it was real. That's when I ended up leaving. Morale was bad.
What do you mean they came out with packages for people to leave?
They wanted, they had to cut cost. And so they started offering a package. If you took a particular package, then, it was a retirement package. And they offered it, to anybody that wanted to take it. I did not take it right away. I was still kind of hanging on. But the COO, Herb Kordoff, ended up going to Memphis and opening. He bought it's called Wright Medical. He bought a spine company, and he.
We know Wright Medical. They got acquired by Stryker for I think 15 or 16 bill.
They did, huh? Well, Herb was the CEO, did an LLC with some other friends, and about 8 or 9 of us went there. We left, and I moved to Memphis. My son I had a baby at that time, and I got myself a package. I got myself a really good package.
By the way, just correction for the audience, it wasn't 15 billion. I was confusing with another company, so they got acquired for 4 billion.
Yeah, I have to tell you, I wasn't very impressed with the company or with the products because, oh God, what was the name? There was a very good spine company, and I can't remember their name right now. They were also in that area in Tennessee. Can't remember their name, but it was a second-rate company. It was a second-rate company for.
So just because I want to make sure I understand. So like, was that? Do you feel like that was the defining moment for U.S. Surgical, which is the just-in-time sales that the salespeople went and sold a year's worth of inventory? And was that something that was strategically planned, or that?
Yes.
Okay, so did Mr. Hirsch say go and sell a year's worth of supply?
Was
it to take up shelf space?
There was a meeting. I knew about it. I heard what was happening. I didn't agree with it. I know the person who suggested it. I'm not going to go there.
Why didn't you agree with it?
Because because look at what was going to happen. I mean, you can't. What were we going to sell in January if we sold everything for a year? And plus, Ethicon, their products were really good. Again, they had contracts that we didn't with the different. There was buying groups. And they had a lot more they were more conservative. They were a subsidiary of Johnson and Johnson. I mean, we were peanuts next to J&J. And so they just had a better presence, and they seemed to, be more reputable. And here we are, like, we're falling apart, and we didn't have the contacts.
So was that Was the thought here is that, so in 92, again, going from a share price of $134 to $31, so the share price fell by about $100 back then, within like a quarter or two. Was the thought was Ethicon was starting to eat into your market share and pick up, and starting taking over. And so the defensive strategy was just like, let's just get ahead of it and buy out that inventory space so that we're there for the following year.
Well, don't forget, we Wall Street owned us. I mean, we were on the NASDAQ. I mean, we had to produce, okay? We had to make a number. We needed to make quota. And it was the end of the year. And this was the only way that they saw to make that quota. And so they did. And that's why Mr. Hirsch ended up selling to Tyco after that, because things just never got better. Yeah.
So that was kind of the beginning of the end, as they say. Was that pivotal year was 92 when that decision was made?
I left I read 94, 95 were just really, it's all a blur. It was just very, very depressing. I think it happened maybe in 93. And then I left of January of 96, but there was just nothing we lost it. It was gone. I mean, Ethicon had taken the market share from us with their staplers, with their trocar. There was a lot of lawsuits going on. 30% of my time was working with legal. So it was constantly being deposed, going to court. There were a lot of lawsuits
from J&J.
Yeah, well, us against because of the patents, because they infringed our patents, and it was it was like I was like the mother of these products, right? And it was like here we did all the hard work, we built those markets. And they just came in and just swooped it away because of their contacts and the prestige that they had as being J&J, and we got sloppy. Rich and sloppy.
Do you feel like if you kind of summarize like sort of like the big lesson learned was that the money and the success came very, very fast. Everyone got comfortable.
Yep.
And then rather than being more offensive, which is what got US Surgical to this point to begin with, like being more innovative, the thought was like, hey, we're going to go on the defensive. Let's do just-in-time sales and let's just sue them. And you can only do that for so long. And especially like going against a company, if there's another company like US Surgical may have survived, but when you're going against a behemoth like J&J, you're not going to win a legal battle or even strategic like pricing contracts, right?
It's the contracts that ended up killing you because they'd lock the hospitals up for a year, 3 years. Okay, they were bundling. I mean, because they had J&J, they could bundle with all these other products, and here we are, like with our. Is
that what US Surgical was trying to do with the just-in-time sales? Like, hey, like let's come up with our own contract and just sell inventory for a year.
Well, it was a way to make that. It was a way to make the number that year. It was a way to make that number and make Wall Street happy, because we were beholden to Wall Street. And that's what drove everything, that number, the quota. And that's why people work so hard. I mean, you didn't make quota, you were gone. Quota drove everything.
And so when you ended up leaving, what got you to decide that it was time for you to leave? Because you built your career there, you had a lot of great memories, and you were you're very loyal. You're very loyal to Mr. Hirsch.
Yeah.
And clearly loyal to customers because, you demoted yourself just to work with somebody and do something out of your passion for the field, which again I think is extremely admirable. What was the moment that you said yeah, it's time for me to move on?
I guess I didn't see a future. The people that were going with Herb I had worked with them. I respected them. I talked to them, and I saw an opportunity. But it was orthopedics. I was doing spine. These cases were 8 hours long, and having back problems myself now. 70% of these procedures ended up failing anyway. It was, oh, and the doctors, okay, we were talking about sports before. I am not into sports, all right? And all of these doctors, hips, knees, it's all about sports. So I couldn't relate to them. And then I hated Memphis. I just hated Memphis. I ran out of there screaming, I say. That's how I ended up in Atlanta. But I didn't like orthopedics. I didn't like working with the surgeons. I love my colorectal, my GYN, my urologist, thoracic, but I do not like orthopedics.
Got it. Well, and just as we kind of, round things out again, I really appreciate you like spending the time with us and doing such an amazing job sort of walking us through that history. When you look back at your time at US Surgical, what were some of the times that made you the most happy or like most fond memories that you have in terms of people you worked with? You mentioned, of course, Mr. Hirsch and Bob Canar and stuff, but what were some of your most fond memories of US Surgical?
When people would leave 6, 7 o'clock, and I was there till 9 o'clock because we were always working on projects, and the art department or the branding department was at the end of the hall. There was Bob Fabrizio. We were very close knit. Okay. We would take off our business clothes, put on sweats. We even had some alcohol, which was illegal, but we would work till 9, 10 o'clock at night on it was a family. It was a family. Everybody was driven. Everybody wanted to be successful. I loved working for Bob Canar. I loved working for Mr. Hirsch, even though Turi was rough on me sometimes. I learned a lot. I grew up there as a business person, as an adult. As an adult, I became an adult there.
I love it, and I can see that just from your face and how you describe it, like it was a great time. And I think this is part of the reason why I was so interested to do this series is aside from like capturing the history that every rep needs to hear. Any exec that I talk to when US Surgical comes up, like their face lights up. Like it's almost like I see like they seem like children, because it was just such an amazing time and fond memory. So, but Lee, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing all this. And I want to thank our listeners. Be sure to take this, forward it on, and share. And be sure to like and subscribe. And we'll see you all next time.